So as a short of the people, and I had this case with me. Actually, as I told you earlier, we have a Vedic Science Club at IIM Indore. So there every Saturday we have a session in which we discuss about spirituality and the logic behind it. So this time I was given a case to discuss. So the topic was the cosmology of life and mind. So the case was this writing was written by the George Wald, very famous. He was a Nobel laureate in medicine and in physics. So what was his argument is he almost spent around 60 years in the field of science, and he came up with some very fantastic discoveries. But still, towards the end of his life, he feels to certain things he don't have an answer. Science is not able to give the answers to those things. So he talks about two things: the cosmology and the consciousness. So in cosmology, he has given certain facts, which I would like to bring in front of you. Like it gives a fact. Like first of all, he talks about the mass. Like if we take the case of an atom, the mass of a nucleon, which contains the neutrons and the protons, is much many more times the electron, which revolves around it. So that makes it possible, actually mass, which causes the stability of the atom and stability of this world. So there is a huge difference in terms of the weight, in terms of the mass of these basic elements, which causes the stability. Second, he talks about the charge. If we take the case of charge, now the charge is absolutely equal if we take of the electrons and of the nucleus. So had the case been this, that there's been a small difference in charge, then there had been a net charge, positive or negative, and things would have repelled each other, and the world could not have been possible. So it's perfect charge balance. And in terms of weight, if we see, there is a complete difference in weight, in mass. There is a complete difference in mass, which makes the stability. Third, he talks about the nature of water. So water is such incredible nature that when it starts freezing from the top, not from the bottom. So in the most adverse condition, Atlantic, Arctic, it sustains life. So the aquatic life can be there because of this. If it would have started from the bottom, there would have been no life, and it would have taken a lot of time to melt the ice. So this is one of the factors. He gives the argument in cosmology. One more, he talks about basic elements like HCNO, which form the basis of everything: hydrogen, carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, maybe organic matter, or the stars, which are the source of light, and because of which we sustain. Source means the only source of energy we have, ultimate source, that is sun, and fission reactions are taking place. So he talks about HCNO, how beautifully these things have been planned, and it is not because we have done this. No, it's because there is certain a supreme force which caused this behavior of certain totally unprobabilistic things. Means if we think, these things look totally unprobabilistic to happen, but these are happening, and things are in continuous balance. He talks about one more thing: the cosmic principle. That is the principle of continuous expansion and diversion that is happening, and that is continuously balanced by the gravity in the local fields. Means the world, people say the world is continuously expanding, but there is certain local gravitation force that is also making a stability, which is forming the stability. He also talks about the stars and the different Milky Way, like our galaxy is Milky Way. There are many billion of galaxies like this. Within them, there are multiple stars, and that sustain life. So he also talks about the concept of life other than this planet. Also, there can be life, but we cannot reach them. We have not been able to comprehend that till date. After that, he talks about what actually science has done. According to him, he comes to the conclusion that science has just not invented anything. It just has discovered the things. Things were already existing by some supreme thing, and in a perfect fashion, science is continuously bringing them out. Just it is like some sand is there on a table, and it is clearing continuously the sand to find the things which are already existing, which are in complete synchronization, which are perfect. So science is continuously going into the different levels of subtleties. Every step it goes deeper, it finds something new. it finds something new. So science, what science has done is nothing invented. It has just discovered. And he makes one point at the end that we could only be that what we can expect to observe must be restricted by the conditions necessary for our presence as observers. So what the logic behind this is that this body, the body which we have is actually not us. One experiment was also done. A patient was given some electrical impulse to the mind, which is responsible for the movement of hand and legs. So as soon as the impulse was given, the hand automatically acted. So it was asked to patient, is it happened consciously? So he said, no, my consciousness, my decision was not involved into that. And second time he was asked to raise his hand consciously from outside. Then he consciously did it. So it's like a body which is continuously in sync with the Supreme. It's like it's being programmed. Like you give an impulse to the mind, hand actually automatically comes up, and your consciousness was not involved. So the main argument or the larger argument that he made was, he wanted to say that if we observe other than being as just body, other than as being soul or something else, that we actually true form is, what our true form actually is, that is separate from the body, then we can analyze these things, we can see these patterns. If we continuously remain into the materialistic thing or the scientific thing, we cannot come up beyond those subtleties which are continuously evolving. Thank you.
Thank you, Rahul. We'll call upon his last Anita. Well, we should give him an applause because cosmology is a very different and difficult term which he actually was good enough to make us understand. We should give him an applause.
By the way, who takes these Vedic science classes or sessions to do it?
He's from ISKCON, he comes every Saturday from Vrindavan.
And where do you have it?
NC 214.
So it's only for PGB ones?
No, it's for everyone. Anyone.
I never got the mail. Or I was
It was floated in the initial days.
Okay. So, anyways, how many of you have come up with a topic? None?
Giving one, so I can.
Okay. Fine. So we'll call Anusha and we'll give her the topic that Deva has given. The topic is, could corporal punishment be useful in the corporate world?
Hi everybody. The topic given to me is corporal punishment justifiable in corporate world? Well, first of all, I don't have any corporate experience. So yes, 2 months of summer internship, but I don't think that is quite relevant because I had fun for the 2 months, and I saw everybody else also having fun, so they are not entitled to any corporate punishment. Corporal punishment. Well, if I was probably given a chance, like I am made the judge of their actions, I would not be giving corporal punishment because the first time they make a mistake, you never know whether they're going to repeat it or not. It's not really justifiable because one funda is I don't believe in corporal punishment even when it comes to when it comes to law in general. Also, I am not somebody who supports physical punishment in the first place. So, how do I say? Oh. Okay, I don't think I can say.
You couldn't imagine herself being in that torturous position because, as she said, she was having fun. Everyone at her office were having fun. So probably the corporate headquarters would want to kind of use the corporal punishment to punish them and make them do some work. Anyways, we have the next topic. Who's the next speaker? Yes. The topic is, in today's age, men are from Venus and women are from Mars.
Good evening, everyone. My topic is that in today's age, men are from Venus and women are from Mars. I have not really read that book, so I probably don't have a very good idea of what that phrase means. But according to me, it means that men are becoming more feminine in a way. I would like to interpret it like that. So, yeah, I mean, you see men having, in IIM Indore itself, they have their special beauty parlor, and women don't have any beauty parlor for themselves. So it's kind of evident of that fact that men are paying more attention to their grooming and are becoming more metrosexual, and and women are finally breaking the glass ceiling and going out to achieve something and progressing in their careers. So they are actually going beyond the feminine, what are perceived as feminine roles. So I think that's why women are kind of becoming tougher, and what roles were initially reserved just for men are now being explored by women as well. So I think that basically explains why women are from Mars and men are from Venus nowadays. Thank you.
Yeah, that was a nice start. I think people are too busy pruning themselves, most of the guys. So, I mean, this is not considered pruning, okay? Coming back, who's coming next? I have a topic. Can we have a guy first? Okay. You think you are a superhero, okay, but you've only reached a stage where you wear your underwear on top of your pants. Please give us a plan of action. What are you going to do further? I mean, you started dressing like a superhero. What next? Imagine yourself to be in that alive. Justify your pants.
Okay, so I'm in the process of becoming a superhero, and I've just started wearing my underwear over my normal attire. So I think the people will think like I've gone crazy, unless I do some weird or crazy activities. Like for becoming like I would like to do something which tells people that I have some supernatural or superpowers. For example, like jumping off the building. But that would be, I mean, that would break my legs and bones.
Imagine yourself talking to your girlfriend, trying to justify it to her. You just feel that you have to pass something. So. One question, Shruva. If you were wearing on underwear on top of your pants, what were you wearing inside?
Not the answer.
Fine, so we'll have Manisha on stage for the next topic. You have a brother, right? Younger brother. So your topic is Are men colorblind? Seems like you already have everything.
Well, my topic for the day is Are men colorblind? Well, colorblindness can be genetic or it can be caused by like the rods and cells inside, and if the rods are absent and you get colorblindness. There's a biological reason for it. But I feel boys, apart from the biological reason, there is other part which relates to them being boys, which causes them colorblindness. Well, who, for example, I think most of you might be watching How I Met Your Mother. But there's Ted Mosby wearing red leather boots, and it's good for him, but please, girls don't find that attractive. So I don't think they really relate to what color is and which color goes with what. You have to tell them, okay, this shirt doesn't go with this pant, don't wear this, don't wear that. So, I mean, how can they not understand this basic thing? Okay, this color goes with this is that I have to wear for this occasion. You constantly have to make them aware of the colors. Say red doesn't go, you cannot wear red for this occasion. You cannot wear green shirt, red pen, no, not done. So, I guess it's something to do with their casualness. They don't care, or rather they care too much. So it's the extremes which you're talking about. They don't see from the point of view of what girls see of being a perfect attire. So color blindness, I think, can be corrected, and some tips for that can be: first, ask your mother. She will genuinely guide you. She'll also tell you how to groom your hair with that, apart from the colors. And second, you can ask your sister. She can help you. And you can even ask your father, because I think he has even enough experience to guide you in that way after so many years. So I think yes, boys are colorblind to an extent, and that can be corrected. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else up to the challenge? Are we left with anyone for the list? No. So we'll have Devapriya. Yes, give an impromptu. This is, and even though you might be vaguely aware of the topic, but then I don't see you ever thought that you'd be asked to speak on it. This topic is autobiography of a temple bell, Mantrika Ghanta, to be precise. For all of you who are wondering why would he be aware? Because we had a repository of all the topics which you couldn't access right now. So that was for emergency.
You've given this.
Yeah, it was given already in one of the sections.
I know, that's why the repository is already received this person. He never spoke on it, so he was giving the topics there.
This is not part of the speech, but just to clarify this, I was given this topic the first time by a senior
Okay,
director.
Well, you're getting a second chance.
Okay, so this is the autobiography of a temple bell. So I'm a temple bell, as they say, Mandir Ka Ghanta, and I am prone to getting banged. So you know what I mean. So here is me on one fine morning, hanging where I'm supposed to hang, and there is this fat old lady comes up, and she starts asking me about, or she starts asking the god that's sitting under me about what kind of bridegroom to find for a kid. And I see her kid, this guy, not really a kid, more like a teenager plus. He's standing right next to her, and both mom and son are really short, so both of them are really trying very hard to do that to me, and I'm having a nice time. For example, for the mom saying that make my son a little taller so that I can't really find a girl for her given his height, and smirking at them, saying that, okay, come on, little guy, jump up, and if you can, really get a hang of me, then you probably can get a hang of better things to come your way. So that was one case. The other is I don't really mind being pushed around as long as they actually leave some money behind. But then people are a little more skunky for that, so I just get banged for free. So okay, let's not take it any further, and let's end it as long as the cheap jokes are on the high. Thank you.
Thank you, Devu. I thought maybe someone else gave it. Anyway, so with that, we'll end today's session, and probably first time, not end the session, but end the impromptu part of the session, and probably we should be able to end up by 9:50. Okay, can I have the Toastmaster of the day?
Thank you, Aditya. Now we'll invite our evaluators. Timer.
For the prepared speech, Devu Priya, total time taken is 5 minutes 17 seconds. Shibani, total time taken 6 minutes 36 seconds. Anusha, 5 minutes 24 seconds. And myself, 6 minutes 36 seconds. For impromptu, Anusha, total time 1 minute 30 seconds. 1 minute 30 seconds. Anjali, 1 minute 7 seconds. Manisha, 1 minute 50 seconds. Shubham, 1 minute 36 seconds. And Devu Priya, 1 minute 13 seconds. Thank you.
Thank you, Rahul. Our grammarian of the day is Anusha.
Given that we had very good speeches today, there were very few grammatical mistakes made, and some of them are. It's not during the childhood because you're speaking about you're not speaking of a definite period, so it has to be in my childhood, and then there has to be consistency maintained between words like game plans, strategies. So, or either everybody, all of them should be in plural or singular. One of the most interesting books, or it has to be a plural, the books. And whatever that has not happened, so the pronoun should be related to the subject that you're referring to, and married to and not with. And there were some pronunciation mistakes, and degrade, instead of degrade at one point of time, denigrate could have been a better word. And economic recession, it's better if you refer it to a particular period because we have had many. And best fitted is wrong, best suits, that role should be a better one. And throne of Hastinapur is correct, not Hastinapur throne because it's a non-living thing. And fond of it's not fondness about fond of. And pretense is the noun form of it. And when you're referring to a common thing, it's you started with an atom rather than the. Then when you're referring to its electrons, probably you can use the. And clearing, what did I write? Okay, invented, nothing is correct and nothing invented. There were yeah, that's it. In prepared speeches, impromptu speeches, I didn't speak much to make any grammatical mistake, and the others, I didn't find any grammatical mistakes.
Thank you, Anusha. Counter, Shubham.
Good evening, everyone. For prepared speeches, Devapriya took 4 hours, Shivani 4 hours, Anusha 15 hours, Rahul 19 hours. For impromptu speeches, Anusha 5 hours, Anjali 2 hours, Shubham, Manisha and Devapriya took 0 hours.
Thank you, Shubham. Our speech evaluator flowing from the speeches and as well prepared Vilanjan.
Seems I have to do a lot of talking around. In between, I was a bit confused as to who are the prepared speakers and who are the impromptu speakers. So what I've listed is like Devo to start with. You had a clear voice in presentation. Your content was pretty crisp. You used the floor space and hand gestures pretty well. You defined and opened your topic quite well. Dwelled on associated areas like religion, personal beliefs and all. You used the word of the day once. The speech had a slight and subtle use of humor throughout. It ended with a quote from Assassin's Creed, which happens to be one of my favorite games, so plus points for that. Your view was mainly straight, and you were not looking at the people sitting on the side, on either side. Next, moving ahead with Shivani. Shivani's starting an entry into the topic was quite good. She used a Sanskrit sloka, which is at times difficult to pronounce, so credits for that. Again, her view was also straight, more or less. The hand gestures were okay. Again, used the word of the day. Comparisons were quite humorous and actually apt. You presented a good analysis of the characters from contemporary time, and your sound was pretty good throughout, and voice modulation was also there. You had a good flow of thoughts overall, and there was a cohesiveness in the speech. Next, coming to Anusha M. Again, you were called upon just like that. So, but still, in spite of that, it didn't seem like an impromptu kind of an attempt. You went about in a chronological order, which makes sense. Towards the end, from between, you had random flow of thoughts about hobbies, your associations, experiences on, but it still sounded good in a proper structure. You shared your life experiences, which were good to hear and at times very humorous as well. You managed to retain the attention of the audience, and you were looking at almost all people around. Your space usage and hand gestures were good, and your overall presentation was quite good and crisp. Moving forward, Rahul Sinohi. Even I didn't know that such a Vedic club existed, but good that you're part of such a good thing, just quite different. Your topic, as is your club, is again a different kind of a topic. Again, I was not really sure whether you were prepared with your topic or you just spoke something impromptu based on what you have learned or what experiences you've had. You went into physics, which reminded me about the subject of physics in school days and all. So I've got a bit nostalgic. You didn't move much on the stage, not a stage as such. But your hand gestures were good. You had a good eye contact, but your view was mainly straight. And yeah, in between though it seemed like a lecture going on molecular physics, but